In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas of America. Tonight, our special guest is Dr. Anthony Wilson. Dr. Anthony Wilson is the Chief Operating Officer of the Columbus Metropolitan Library, CML, where he leads with a people first approach that blends operational excellence with a deep commitment to service. In this role, he oversees human resources, property management, security, and the organization's diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Before his promotion to COO, Anthony served as CML's Director of Safety and Security. Prior to joining CML, Anthony served 4 years in the United States Air Force and then spent more than 28 years in law enforcement, culminating his career as an assistant chief of police. These experiences shaped his belief that strong leadership is built on trust, accountability, and courage to listen, values he carries into every decision he makes. Anthony holds a BA in Leadership and Ministry from Ohio Christian University, an M&A in Human Services from Liberty University, and a PhD in Organizational Leadership from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. In 2019, he was honored as Ohio Christian University's Alumnus of the Year for his dedication to servant leadership and community impact. Beyond the library, Anthony serves as an at-large city council member in Grove City, Ohio, and sits on the board of directors for Special Olympics Ohio. Whether helping guide a major metropolitan library system or shaping local policy, he remains focused on developing people, strengthening communities, and leaving every organization stronger than he found it. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Anthony Wilson. Hello, sir.
Hey, good evening, Charles. How you doing?
I am doing just excellent. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. It's an honor.
Yes, sir. Before we get into the show, is there anything else that you would like to say about your bio or add to your bio before we get into the show?
Oh, man, I'm always humbled when I hear somebody else read my bio. But I think some of the things that I would add will probably come up organically as we have this discussion.
Okay. Oh, well, then let's jump right into it. Then we're going to talk about your leadership at the Columbus Metropolitan Library.
All right.
So, can you tell us what does your role as COO of the Columbus Metropolitan Library entail on a daily basis?
Oh man, on a daily basis, I'm really blessed to have a good group of directors that I work with across the organization, and so a lot of my day is really meeting with my team, going over some of the day-to-day challenges that we may face. Also celebrating some of our wins because we don't do enough of that. But primarily, with property management, it's, custodial maintenance. It's also transportation, which a lot of people don't know about. Our resources, books and other items have to be delivered to 23 different locations across Franklin County and Fairfield County. So, property management is a big, department with a lot of responsibilities. And then, of course, HR, we have 850-ish employees. So, personnel matters are going to come up. And then also, with security, 23 locations, about 50 plus security officers. And we have our own security operations center with, roughly 200 or so cameras. So we've got there's a lot of things going on the day to day. And then our DEI initiatives are important too, making sure that we're engaging with our employees and making sure that they have the tools and resources they need to feel like their voices are heard, and that they're a valued part of the organization.
Oh, wow. So, so it sounds like that in the midst of all of this and all of those, I think you said 23 or so libraries
Yeah.
across 2 counties. Um, so like for you, does that mean that you actually have to be a whole lot more hands-on than, let's say, what you would normally be doing? When I say more hands-on, I mean like, are you having to basically get in there and maybe do some of the work with some of the employees, or have them assisted in some other way?
No, actually, so I have 3 directors and a manager that report to me, and they do a really good job of managing the team. Obviously, they have managers and supervisors that report to them. So not a lot of in the weed stuff, but I'm there as a resource when things pop up, or if there's a challenge that they feel they need support in, I'm there for them. So, but I'm always around and engaged. I mean, that's the important piece is for me is being engaged and letting them know that they can always come to me. And sometimes I may just pop in to see them to see how they're doing.
So, how do you balance operational efficiency with community-centered programming?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, Everything for me and for our organization is sitting around the customer. So, we serve in those 23 locations. They're in various segments of our community. A lot of them are in marginalized communities. And so we really have to look at, the needs of those communities and really base our operations around those needs. We're customer focused. A lot of libraries will call customers patrons. We call them customers, and so we believe in that customer first philosophy, and everything we do is centered around our customers. I mean, we're real big on human-centered design. So all of our operations are really customer focused, whether it's delivering books, delivering different resources that people need to our different library systems. We also deliver books and other resources to other library systems around the county and surrounding counties as well.
Mm, okay. So, are you guys broken down in districts or regions in the state of Ohio?
It's more, I would say it's more kind of like a district, but it could be city focused. Every library system is really different across the country. Some libraries are supported and funded by their city government, their municipality. Some levies, state funding, and so a lot of libraries are set up differently. For us, I would say we're probably more regional, just because we hit Fairfield County, but we also deliver to like Licking County and these other counties around Franklin County, which is the county we're in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but every library system set up. But for us, it's probably we like to say we're more county centric, but you could see it as more regional as well with all the work that we do.
Okay. So, what innovations are you most proud of implementing across the library system?
Oh man, I would say one of the things that I'm most proud of, if I'm specifically talking about, sort of in my wheelhouse, would be, our employee relations group. We have 5 employee relations groups. When I first started at the library 7 years ago, we had 0. We have a DEI committee. We did not have a DEI committee when I first started. So I think I'm proud of the fact that we've been able to create safe spaces for our staff to engage and network and really talk about some of the challenges that they may be having, whether it's professionally or even personally. But having that network for them, it was very important to me because, sometimes, you can be in a library system where you may have very few African Americans or very few Asians, and so having that opportunity to really network with people and find that support group is important, especially when you're spread out over 23 locations. 7 different municipalities we're in. So, it's a big system.
Mm. Wow. So how do libraries serve as modern day sanctuaries for learning and justice?
Oh man, we're libraries to me are when I was growing up, it was the recreation. The recreation center was the place to go.
Mhm.
I say the recreation center had a role in raising me, but the libraries to me have become that community hub where the programming is centered around not just kids, right? Not just you know kids, but teens. We call them tweens, adults, older adults. So we have programs set up for everyone. And so what we've been able to do is make sure that we tailor those programs to the needs of the people in the community, but also, from a social justice standpoint, really providing that safe space for people they can engage and have all those resources they need to be informed and aware, especially of things that are happening in the community, but also in the world itself.
Mhm. So, Dr. Wilson, tell us what is the importance of that DEI program that you mentioned, a couple of times? What is the importance of that program, and how does it work within your library system?
Right. So for us, it's really around education, understanding, and awareness, right? Because we all come from different backgrounds. We all have different worldviews. But if you've not spent a lot of time with somebody that has grown up in a different country, has a different religious background, different cultural background, you don't really have a whole lot of knowledge of them and some of the things that they believe in or some of the values that they have. And so if we're going to be a cohesive workforce, and Charles, if I'm going to work with you and we're going to work side by side, then I need to take some time to really get to know you and know things about you. One, I want to be respectful to you and your culture and your background. But two, I want you to know a little bit about me and understand about me, and we'll be more cohesive at working, build that culture of respect. And that is the important piece right there, is building that culture of respect where we can all function together and work together, even though we come from different backgrounds, but we can be efficient and effective working together. That's the important part to me, is that understanding and awareness piece that we all need.
What challenges do public libraries face in today's digital age?
Whew. I think that one of the biggest challenges right now is just making sure people have access.
Mhm.
There's so many different, communities that don't have access. We're big on digital equity and making sure that people have access. That is the challenge for a lot of library systems, is making sure that we can, whether it's providing people with hotspots or things like that, but really making sure that people have access to those resources that can really help them succeed, not only in the classroom, but in life.
You know, when you just mentioned about going to the library, they've totally revamped the libraries here in Metro Atlanta. And in our library, I noticed that now the meeting rooms are a whole lot larger, and I love that. And but depending upon which library system you're in, they'll have you, you have to reserve the room like a day in advance or a week in advance or so forth. But my library, which is right here around the corner, we could just go in. It's first come, first serve. And so I really like that. But when we're talking about the digital era, now one thing I have not checked is that I don't know if they have, like, where you're able to sit down and read like ebooks on any of the computers they have. And so what I was just going to ask you is that, do you guys have that in your library system?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, with your library card and our library system, most library systems, you have access to ebooks and a lot of e-content. Um,
Mhm.
Whether it's in the library or at home in your own home, you can access that e-content, ebooks, different things like that, electronic resources. From if you want to do research, like Ibako and things like that, or get research information, you can do that from the comfort of your own home with a library card. And most library systems are set up that way. But again, it's making sure people have access to the internet to be able to do those things, especially in rural and marginalized communities.
Well, I tell you what I love most about that part is the access to Canopy. And so,
Oh yeah.
while I'm home, sometimes I put it up on the Roku TV. And so it's like, you get, I think it's like 11 movies a month, 5 movies a month, or something like that. And so I just go and I just download all the movies that I like, and I just go and I just look at them.
Yeah. Well, and Charles, that's what we have to do. We have a really robust marketing team, but I think as a system, library systems across the country, we need to do a better job of getting that information out there for people, because I think sometimes they don't realize that Canopy is there or there's other opportunities there. You can do your own local history and genealogy search, from the comforts of your own home. You can look up your family history. Most libraries have that resource.
Oh, wow.
I did it.
Now, see, that I did not do. I went and did mine the other way, but I mean, there's some things I was missing, so I may have to go and find out how to actually start that process, because that's definitely a good thing to find out.
Well, if I could share this real quick, when I first started working at the library, I was working on my family history,
Mhm.
and I was able to access information and find a newspaper ad in one of the black newspapers back in the 1940s, where my grandmother owned her own hair salon.
Oh, wow.
And my grandfather was a police officer back then, and he had built it on the back of their house, which is now in downtown Columbus. It's the home is no longer there because it's all the buildings and things. But just seeing that and seeing my grandmother's name, and seeing a lot of that history made me proud.
So what do you guys use? That do you guys still use the microfiche, or is there something else that you're using?
Yeah, a lot of the microfiche is now, like, it's like electronic content now. They've been able to load it up into the computer. So we've gotten away from the microfiche for the most part. But there's still, we still get old documents, like newspaper documents, that we scan in, so to make them electronic, to make them viewable in electronic form. So we've gotten away from the microfiche, but I remember those days too.
Wow. So how do you ensure equity and access across all 23 branches?
Oh, that's a good question. One of the things that we do, and sometimes we joke about this. My CEO, if she's watching, she might get me tomorrow. But we meet a lot. We talk a lot. We communicate a lot, and we listen to people in the community. And so the equity piece is not necessarily equality, right? It's not necessarily, because our libraries are different sizes.
Uh-huh.
They're in different segments of the community where it may be densely populated, may not be. But we make sure that they have the resources they need to serve that community in an equitable manner.
Right.
Whether it's this is a community that relies on computers, right, for resumes, for seeking jobs, for things like that. So we may not have as many books, but we may have a lot of different computer stations set up for them.
Right.
But then we may have a community where it's like, we have a lot of communities that do our story time, where they bring in toddlers and young kids for story time. So they may have a bigger area for their story times.
Right.
And so that's how we do it, is we make sure that we're providing the need and the resources for that community, and based on their specific needs and what they want.
And I always thought, now that's something I will tell you, I think is really interesting when you talk about that story time. I noticed this little section at first, and I never paid attention to it in my library. And you're right, it's a really nice big section. And they have all these little chairs staged so the kids are sitting down and somebody's reading these stories. And I'm like, well, dang, okay, go ahead, library.
Yeah. So, I always tell people it's not my grandmother's library, right? When we grew up, it was like, shh. Now the library is loud, it's active. Always tell people I have one of the greatest jobs in the world. I get to work at 9 o'clock. The library comes to life with you hear kids, you hear all kinds of different things happening. And it's like, even if you were having a bad morning, when you hear a lot of kids laughing and having a good time in a library, it does boost your spirits.
Right. What role does the library play in bridging the digital divide?
It's the access. I mean, it's to me, it's the access. We provide the access.
Mhm.
We are just one of those places that people can go to get that access, and I think that's why we're 23 locations strong. Um, throughout different segments of the community is because people, first and foremost, they need access. It's like healthcare. It's like everything else. If you don't have access, you can't get to it. And if you can't get to it, you can't meet that need. And so I think that's our role is we're set up where we are in a position to give everybody, we're all like on the bus lines, so if you don't have transportation as far as your car, you can get on the public transportation and get to any one of our locations. So it's that access piece is so important, Charles.
So, how do you measure success in a public library system?
Oh man, I think there's multiple ways that you can measure success, but I think first and foremost, it's based on the feedback we get from the people we serve. We are always sending information out. We're always seeking information. We have one of our executive leadership team members is solely focused on human-centered design, and that's going into the community and working with staff and bringing everybody together to get input and to get feedback on what it is we're doing well, what things we can do better. And so, that to me is when we just passed a levy 2 years ago. And levies are, sometimes can be a little tricky, depending on, people's financial situation. But, it was well over 60% that it passed. And to me, that's an indication of success in the library when people are willing to invest money into your library system and say, we love our libraries. And even with, some of the things that are happening politically, we got so much comfort and feedback from our customers and how much they love their libraries and how much they appreciate us being there. Because again, a library is more than books now. We do snacks, we do after school snacks.
Oh,
you
wow.
know, yeah, I mean, we have a partnership where we do after school snacks because we know kids, if we want them to do, to get help with homework, if we want them to study, they got to have some nutrition in them to be able to focus.
Mhm.
And so we understand that. So, and I'm a service oriented person. So when I heard that, when I first started working here, I knew this was a place for me.
Oh, wow. Well, we got some comments here in the chat. Two by Joseph Morbitzer.
Okay.
His first one is, as you see on the screen, he says, Tony is an outstanding leader with high moral and ethical standards. He is a fair and courageous leader, and put Joe M.
Yeah.
His second comment is he has always lived with people at the center of his decision making. During his career, he has piloted many community initiatives directed toward youth and those in need. Oh, wow.
Hey, Charles. So Joe is I served under Joe as assistant chief of police.
Okay.
And Joe is like a brother, mentor, friend. And we really, Joe and I went through some stuff together at the police department that probably made us even closer than we thought we could ever ship. And you know, I appreciate that, Joe, but under his leadership, I really learned. I think it's always important when you can sit under leaders that really help you understand how important it is to pour into the community and to serve in different capacities that you didn't ever think you could serve in.
Yes.
And so, you know, I want, and what I learned from Joe is what I'm trying to be to other people is that resource to help people understand that it's not about you. It's so much bigger than you. And he taught me about depositing into the community because at one point, especially as a public entity, you may have to make a withdrawal.
And so we got another comment. This one's from Netta. I put it on the screen. She says, how can we bring library into the home of our communities? What type of awareness needs to be expressed and shared so people are comfortable with direct access to these resources?
Yeah, that's a question. We've got to make sure that people understand what's available at the libraries, because again, it's that misnomer that it's just books, right? And I think again, as library systems, we've got to do a better job of promoting the resources and the opportunities within a library. I'll even say this, Charles, even employment opportunities, right? I never ever thought about working at a library, you know, never. But then I just told you I have, you know, property management, human resources, and security. So there's so many different opportunities within a library system. But we've got to do a better job of promoting those opportunities and getting out there in the community. And we've done that. We have a team called the Street Squad that go out to different various community events and things like that. And they're able to promote opportunities that are happening within the library from a programming perspective to, you know, access to, you know, Wi-Fi, hotspots, just different things like that. So we're trying to do our part in really getting out there and really communicating with people and letting them know what's available and how to gain access to those things that are available for them.
So I was just about to ask you that, you know, from your perspective, what is your connection to the communities? What are your interactions? Do you ever go out and interact with the people in the communities or patrons that come into the library?
Yeah, I mean, you know, anytime we have like we have a summer reading challenge kickoff in the summer, and we're trying to inspire and motivate not just kids but adults to read during the summer. We know, you know, what kind of skill sets are lost with our youth over the summer breaks, so we try to keep them engaged. So we have these, you know, every location, all 23 have a summer reading challenge kickoff. So we're able to interact and engage with the community there. We have a very large book festival. And so it's an opportunity for us to bring the community in and we engage there. But I do a lot of different things with our different partnerships too, and trying to create partnerships with different organizations. So for instance, I'm on the board of directors for Special Olympics. And right now we're trying to create a relationship between our library system and Special Olympics Ohio, so we can build that relationship with kids who have intellectual disabilities and adults. And so, you know, so there, I mean, I'm always out in the community, I guess, and I'm always recruiting and talking about different opportunities within the library. Any opportunity I get, I can be at dinner with my wife, and there can be a conversation with somebody about the library. So, so yeah, I mean, it's just, I think any opportunity you get, you always want to promote and plug the library and the different resources that we have that can really help people. I mean, even from small business owners, you know, we have a small business and nonprofit center that helps people organize and build a small business.
Oh, wow. That's a really great resource to have. I mean,
Yeah.
what brought that on? I mean, what made you guys decide to take that extra step?
Again, it's like communicating with people in the community and understanding what that need is and where that gap is, and we will try to step in and fill that gap. There was a need.
Are you still here? Okay. Yeah, you have froze.
Yeah.
So what does leadership look like in a space that serves everyone?
It's I say authentic. You've got to be an authentic leader. You've got to lead with empathy. You've got to really work on understanding that people have various needs and different needs. But leading with empathy, I think, is one of the most important things when you're leading in a space with so many different people, so many different needs and challenges. And so for me, it's really understanding those needs and then how do we fulfill those needs? And that's not just customers, that's our staff too. Mm-hmm. One thing about libraries people don't know, and people may not know about, is that, it's a public space. So all people are welcome in the library. Yes. And sometimes you do get unhoused people, and sometimes we do have people who have mental health issues and challenges. And so we've got to be able to navigate those challenges, but also help them feel welcome and feel like it's a space where they can be included too.
So how do you cultivate a culture of belonging among staff and patrons?
So I put my PhD to work now. Organizational leadership, it's really around building that culture of what you just said. And so a lot of that starts with, what's the organization's values, right? And so one of our values, very first value when you walk in a library, if you ask somebody about our organizational values, is respect. And then we have behaviors assigned to that. And so that's the basis and the foundation that we use to build that culture of belonging and inclusivity. And so it's the expectation that we have for our staff, expectation that we have for ourselves, because we have to carry that banner as leaders. And then that permeates down into our customers and our contractors, our vendors. We all have that expectation that we will lead with respect. And so for us, when I came into the organization, I told them, I said, y'all made DEI easy with this value of respect. Because if we all learn to respect one another, man, that's an amazing place to work, right? Because Charles, you and I, we can say, I'll ask you the question that I ask people during new staff orientation. Charles, have you ever been to a place where you felt like you didn't belong?
Yes.
Did you ever want to go back?
No.
And so that's what we focus on, is making sure that when people come into our organization as employees, that it's a place where they feel like they belong, their voice is heard, and they're valued. And that starts from the top, from our CEO all the way down. And that's how we build that culture, because it does start from the top. And we've got to exhibit that behavior and make sure that not only are we exhibiting it and we're talking about it, but people feel it. It's a feel.
So let's move over to your work in community engagement and public service. Tell us, what inspired your transition from law enforcement to library leadership?
Oh, when you read my bio, all of my degrees have nothing to do with law enforcement, right? Even though I spent almost 30 years in law enforcement,
I knew.
What's that?
It's the correlation.
Yeah, but I knew that chapter would have to end at some point. But I knew I always had that leadership in me from an early age. And for me, I knew that there was another opportunity somewhere for me in the leadership position. I just didn't know it was going to be the library. As a matter of fact, I at some point I wanted to be a chief of police somewhere, right? And was going to take Joe's place in my mind, but also knew that chapter was going to close at some point, and there was something bigger for me. I'm very spiritually grounded, so I knew there's something more. And so when I went to the library, I honestly thought the library was going to be my retirement job. I was like, I'm gonna go to the library, I'm gonna coast, I'm gonna be good. But I remember in my interview with the library, I'm sitting with the CEO, the previous CEO, and the chief financial officer, and I asked them, I said, well, I'm the interviewing for director of safety and security. I said to them, I said, well, how do I get a seat at this table? I want to see that at the leadership table. How do I get this seat? And I remember CEO said, well, nobody's ever asked us that question before. And so I said, well, I don't want to come in and just coast, and I want to come in and I want to sit here. And so over time, just being engaged and involved, that CEO saw something in me and saw that I could be a valuable asset on the leadership team, and just came to me one day and was like, hey, I'm thinking about this. How do you feel about it? And we had some conversations over a week or so, and then I got promoted. But I've always been the kind of person who I know there's more, and I know I can do more in an organization. And if I'm given the opportunity, I feel like I can help that organization grow and be better.
How has your background in policing shaped your approach to community engagement?
I think when you see people at their lowest low, and I have compassion and empathy for people. You just want to help. It showed me a side of people. You kind of see the good, the bad, and the ugly. But you also have to understand that everybody's background is different, and everybody is dealt a hand, in life, and you got to play the hand that you're dealt. And sometimes people are given a hand that is, I'm a spades player. It's like, man, I have zero, right? But you got to play them. And so, you kind of see how people are just looking for guidance sometimes, and they're looking for support, and they're looking for encouragement and help. And, and I remember as a young man looking for that too, as a teenager, support and guidance and things like that. I grew up in a single parent home. Watched my mom work 12-hour plus shifts, and so, so when you see that as a police officer, you realize that there's opportunities for us to serve people in our communities on a whole different level to really help them, find that path, and get on that, I don't want to say get on the right track, because that doesn't necessarily mean they're on the wrong track, but really helping them understand that there are people out there.
So, what are some of the most impactful community programs you've helped launch?
I would say one of the things that I would go back to, and this is not library, this is law enforcement. I started a program called Police and Community Kids in the neighborhood with my own money. And to this day, those kids who are now adults still reach out to me and still communicate with me about the great things that they're doing in the community. And so I have to go back and look at that, and I say that to me is the most impact. Even when I used to coach sports, they're adults now. They come to me and they're like, "Hey, coach," and I'm like, "Man, you're 6'5" now." When I was coaching you, you were up to my shoulders. So for me, Charles, I'll say this: I don't know that it's more impactful programming than it's how you impact individual people, right? Because I have, like my purpose in life every day is to give somebody help, hope, and encouragement. And so if I can do that every day, to me, that's a much greater impact than maybe a program that I run or something like that. And that's just for me. So every day, God put somebody in front of me to give them either help, hope, or encouragement. And I always take advantage of that opportunity.
Well, Dr. Wilson, just thinking and just listening to the many facets to what you've had or what you have as a career. And it seems like it's all people driven. And so if you've done so much in the community, I'm sure that there's got to be some things that that people that have had the connection to you can say, oh, I remember this, that, or the other. So just say just in general, when you're just out in the community, what is it like when people actually see you? What are some of the things that they say or they come up to you and talk about?
A lot of it is around them, and how well they're doing and how much they appreciate the impact that I've had on their life.
Right.
And Charles, when we first started, you asked me about the bio and anything else to add. I pastored a church for 12 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I pastored a church for 12 years. Very spiritually grounded I am. And so when you talk about impactful programming, I could go back there and, we did some revivals. We did some really good things in the community that we were serving. But, and I still have a lot of people that, was involved in the church that I still, talk to and communicate with. But a lot of it is just me pouring into them. And I think that's where I get the satisfaction, because that's my life purpose, is to pour into people. And so when you have people come to you and they thank you, and it's something that you may perceive as something small, but they thank you, for a word of encouragement, or they thank you for, helping them through a situation. It's just one of those things where you appreciate it and you understand that you're doing, something good in the community.
So when we talk about that, because I'm sure that all of that's that's more than just impactful, I mean, because that's some real stuff. But so like when it came to, you say you pastored a church at a point in time. So even in the process of doing that and everything being so community driven, what was it about community that just made you feel like you had to go and you had to do the part and the things that you're doing? What was it about community?
I would say it's part community, but it's part of me understanding legacy,
Mhm.
and not my legacy, but the legacy of the people who came before me, right? Like when I talked about my grandfather and my grandmother, uh, my grandfather was a police officer from 1937 to 1952. He got injured in 1949. And because of that injury, they found out that he had bone cancer.
Oh, wow.
So he ended up dying when my mother was like 3 years old,
Mhm.
right? And so my grandmother, she, and I think it was from diabetes. She ended up going blind. My grandmother passed when I was 12. For me, Charles, it's finishing, right? I have the opportunity. My grandfather and grandmother were very big into the community. They did a lot of work in the community. And so for me, I look at it as an opportunity to sort of finish what they started. Um, and to understand how much they love the community and being involved with the community. I mean, my grandmother was, you know, doing hair, styling for free for people who were going to get, job interviews, you know. So to me, I think it's in my DNA. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's just naturally there. But I also feel like I'm standing on their shoulders, unwavering, standing on their shoulders, but I'm also trying to finish and carry on that legacy of service to community and humanity.
So, how do you engage the youth in meaningful ways through library services?
The library puts me in an opportunity where I get invited to go to different schools, to different programs, to talk to youth. Like we have a school next door, and they invited me over to talk about like inclusion and belonging. Um, but getting that opportunity to go and talk to students, talk to kids, interact with different kids throughout our libraries is one of the most impactful things for me when I'm engaging with them, because a lot of times they don't see people that look, especially young African American kids don't see black COOs, right? I mean, let's just be real, okay? And so when I'm able to go in and introduce myself as a chief operating officer at the Columbus Metropolitan Library, you can see the look in their eyes. And so the library gives me that opportunity to go and engage with different youth throughout the community to really talk about, my experiences, or, how we are creating a more inclusive and culture of belonging at the library. So it just, from even law enforcement really gave me that opportunity to do that as well. And even then, as assistant chief of police, people seeing me, that looked like me and were like, oh, wow. So I think I'm in a position where I can give people hope just by my presence. And that's important to me too. But the library just affords me so many opportunity to get in front of people. And we had a Speak Up, Speak Out series a few years ago. And I had the opportunity to interview Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Ta-Nehisi Coates?
Yeah, oh yeah, Ta-Nehisi Coates. And it was amazing. And just the feedback and the audience participation in that. So it's provided me the opportunity to really have FaceTime with people who are also, trying to get back to the community and trying to provide a service to the community in different ways.
Wow. Now that young man, I gotta say, I love his books and so forth, and I would love to have the opportunity to have him on this show because, some of the things that he talks about are so relevant to culture and society today.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What does authentic community partnership look like to you?
Excuse me, sorry about that. I think it's, for me, it has to be openness, right? When we're talking about authenticity, right? It's not about a win-win, right? For each partner. It's more about the community winning, and how do we come together and partner so that the community benefits and the community wins? Because sometimes, especially in the nonprofit world, a lot of times it's what are we getting out of this? What can we get out of this partnership? And it's really more about what the community can get out of it. Like when I say we provide snacks for kids, that's a great partnership that we have with another nonprofit entity. And who benefits? The youth, right? And so to me, that's the authentic part. Did I cut out?
No, I hear you.
Yeah, to me, it's making sure that the other part to that is making sure you have the right partner, because every partner is not a good partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to make sure that you're all on one accord. You've got some mission alignment, vision alignment when you create those partnerships, because you could get to the point where that partner is really they have their own agenda, and it's not a beneficial partnership. Right. And so when we partner with the YWCA or other organizations within Franklin County, surrounding counties, it's about how can we provide a benefit to the people in the community.
Well, we got another comment here in the chat, and it's from Donna Applewhite. She says, very informative session. I was a member of the New Ray Hope of Excellence, Pastor. God has no limits on his people. I showed across the screen.
Oh, that's thank you, Donna. Thank you. I appreciate that. Love you.
How do you navigate trust building in historically underserved neighborhoods?
You got to show up. You got to be present. You got to allow yourself to be vulnerable. You got to be open with people, because people can see through you. And so, so when you are trying to build that trust, and we know trust, it's hard to get, hard to gain, and easy to lose. And so it's not even just about gaining that trust initially. It's about how do you keep it. Mm-hmm. And so, you've got to be sincere, and you've got to be open when you're going into communities, but you got to have knowledge of the things that are happening in that community, because a lot of times people think they can go into marginalized or underserved communities and make a connection when they don't even know what's happening in the community. Ooh. Is it a food desert? Is it lack of access to other things? And it always happens. And that's where you lose trust right off the bat. Well, you don't even get trust. Mm-hmm. You got to know what's happening in the community. The other thing is you got to know who the community connections are.
Right.
right? Because
Right.
there's informal leaders in the community and there's formal leaders in the community, and you got to get all of them at the table.
Mhm.
And so, for me, it's understanding what's really happening in the community. What are the needs in that community? What are people lacking in that community? What are people hoping they can get in that community? And when you start to, when you can come in there and say, well, I see this, I know that, man, y'all don't have any grocery stores in this community. How can we support y'all in this effort? There's no access to healthcare in this community. How can we get access? There's no libraries in this community. How can we help get libraries in this community? And when you come in and you're telling people what you're seeing, then they're going to tell you, well, we also don't have this, or we also need this. And then you start to build that collaboration. And when you can have community collaboration, what they need. Oh, y'all need this and y'all need that. And you're going to lose the community that way.
Dr. Wilson, let me say this because, that is one of the things that's nearest and dearest to my heart is, and I find it to be appalling because there are an enormous amount of people that go into underserved, marginalized communities and they do this exploit thing. They exploit the community to little to nothing and do not even give a care about it. And the one thing that you mentioned, where needing to not just know connections, but also if you're not actually there where you've actually done things in the community, then you have no capital. So if you have no capital, please don't come here. And so I just really, as I think about, just how wonderfully you've done to craft and create, the things you've done in your communities that you serve and, for the work that you do. I mean, let some of these folk that's listening to the show, tell them some things that maybe they should do or learn how to actually start connecting and building those communities.
Yeah. Yeah. The first thing, Charles, is you got to go, right?
Mhm.
You've got to go into the community and you've got to talk to people in the community, talk to people, I'll use ground zero, you got to go to ground zero and you can't be afraid because I think sometimes people are, I don't want to go in that community. You got to go in because 9 out of 10 people in that community, they want to have conversation about, how they can be supported, how they can be assisted. They also want knowledge on where they can go to get that assistance and get those resources. And so, you've got to, that we're talking about authenticity, you've got to have some genuine curiosity as well and tell them, hey, I don't know everything that I need to know about what's going on, but I really want to sit down and talk about it so that I can understand, so that I can be a resource and I can be provide assistance as well. And so it's, first of all, you've got to make that connection. So you got to go, but you got to make those connections. And as you make those connections, you start to build that trust. And when you start to build that trust, people will they'll open up to you. Because we know in certain communities, it takes a minute for people to really open up to you because they don't, they don't trust the system. The system has exploited them, like you said, or has come in for, a couple of minutes because they got a grant to do some stuff in the community. And then the next thing you know, they're gone and everybody's trying to figure out where they went. And so it's about relationship. And that was the third thing. It's about relationship. So you got to go, you got to make that connection, and then you've got to build that relationship and make sure it's a long-term relationship. And once you build that, community members will open up to you and you can have a really great collaboration from that point on because you built that trust.
What role does storytelling play in community healing?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, to me, storytelling is the gateway to healing because it opens up so much dialogue, with people in the community and also understanding. I mean, even from a historical perspective, right? It just opens up so much dialogue and so much opportunity for discussion. And it creates, to me, sometimes a sense of worth, storytelling. Man, if I've always wanted to be a master at storytelling because I know how impactful and effective it is. And when you can tell a story to a group of people, and they can really resonate with that, it goes a long way in helping them to be inspired too and motivated.
How do you use your platform to amplify marginalized voices?
So I always have to remember where I came from. And I always have to remind myself, because people will look at me and they'll say, well, it's Dr. Anthony Wilson. He's the chief operating officer. But I wasn't always Dr. Anthony Wilson, chief operating officer, right? I graduated from high school. I shared this with you when we talked, with a 1.6 GPA, right? I had teachers tell me I wasn't going to amount to anything when I was in high school. And so, for me, it's understanding and always remembering where I came from, and connecting with people and really just letting them know that it's not where you start, right? It's where you finish. And so I think for me, it's always just remembering where I came from and then connecting with people and letting them know that the Anthony you see today was not the Anthony, growing up, and that, we're all in this together. We are all in this together. And it's so much bigger than us individually. And so just trying to continue to make those connections, Charles, just continually making those connections out there in the community and letting people see you for who you really are. Did I answer your question?
You did, and just when I just think about it is, it just leads credence to, I always have to knock on wood because I just feel so blessed and fortunate that when I have all the superheroes like yourself that come here to tell these stories, because it's all about community. It makes me even more proud, to do this work, because we've got to find so many different ways, because we know people are different, cities, states, communities, they're all different. And so just in that whole process, it's like just to know that, we have people that are really trying,
Yeah.
to really make this difference. And it's the thing that, that serves the main purpose. Because if we're not actually doing what's necessary to help, especially those communities, then we're doing a disservice.
That's
We're
a
doing a
fact.
disservice.
That's a fact.
And, I just have to say, like, again, superheroes like yourself, people need to know who you are.
Hey, Charles, I appreciate that, man. But I'm going to throw it back at you, too, because this platform and what you're doing is important in getting that information out and really letting the world know, that there are people, like yourself, like me, and other people, on this platform that are really trying to make a difference in the community and in the world, and hoping, that we can, we touch one or two people,
Yes.
We've done a great service, but if we can get 200 or 300, then we're doing a really good job.
Yes, sir. What's one moment in your community work that changed you?
Wow. I would say going into ministry. When I went into ministry, it changed me. I never took a salary as a pastor. You're right. And the reason why was because I knew financially people, I always used to tell people, if my mom was listening, she could repeat this. As a pastor, I don't have a house to put you in. You got to pay your rent. You got to pay your bills, right? And
Right.
so don't pay the church, and I know there's some people would be like, hey, wait a minute, don't say that. But trust me, pastor don't have no house to put you in. Pay your bills, right? I'm gonna be okay. The church gonna be okay. And I think that was one of the things that changed me, was, understanding and giving people grace, and the importance of grace, and not really holding people to a standard that they can't live up to, and then making them feel like they're not worthy because they can't pay a tithe.
Oh, wow.
That changed me. And I had pastors that chastised me for not taking a salary. One Sunday, I said, we're not collecting tithes. Go do something good for somebody. And I had, other pastors like, don't ever do that again, But it was the understanding the importance of giving people grace. And it was through the ministry. And to me, that was the most important part, was, not holding everybody to the same standard.
How do you balance policy with empathy in public service?
Wow. So I think that the way you do that is, and I use the word collaboratively, right? I think you've got to understand, people. You've got to understand that, how policies can impact people. And sometimes, a policy looks great on paper, but when it's implemented, it can have a devastating impact on people. And so I think, before, let's even think about policy, let's think about the impact on people. And maybe we're bringing everybody to the table. Which is the great thing about DEI, right, is the opportunity to bring so many different people to the table to craft policy. Because I think sometimes we put the cart before the horse and we're like, hey, we got these policies and these are great. And then, you're going back into the table and drawing board and trying to change them because it wasn't as great as you thought it was. But if you bring a lot of people to the table, you can come up with something that's beneficial for everyone. And I think that's the key.
So let's move over to your work as an at-large city councilman. And what motivated you to run for city council?
Man, I got appointed to city council back in February. I worked on a campaign for the city council member whose seat I'm sitting in right now. He was running for state rep, a really great person. Sad to lose him from city council, but great that he's our representative at the state level. And I worked on his campaign, and I complained a lot, Charles, about things that were happening in my city. I'm one of them. I'm the guy that was sitting on the bench, but I'm complaining about the way everybody else playing. And so finally, I said I got to get off the bench, and I got to get in the game. And so when Mark got elected to the state house, I applied for the appointment, and I think it was 25 plus people that applied, in a city that's probably 4%, 5% African American, and I got appointed. And trust me, some people said I was the DEI appointment and all that, but I got appointed. And the other reason, I will say that the main reason is John Lewis. When John Lewis passed, John Lewis was a really big icon to me, a true, to me, American hero was John Lewis. And it was time to get into some good trouble. It was time to go into politics and stop complaining and listen to people and what people want, and be a voice for the people who felt like they didn't have a voice. And I felt like I didn't have a voice. I met a group of people in Grove City that were like-minded people, and it gave me so much hope, Charles, that, I knew there was an opportunity to be a voice for that group of people.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So how do you advocate for library and education funding at the city level?
So at the city level, we really don't. I mean, we have our city has a really good partnership with our library system. As a matter of fact, we own the building that the library's in here in Grove City. So I live in Grove City. But I think the way we do it, like our library funding comes from like levies and then from the state. So we would lobby, a lot of times library funding was kind of under attack, still is in Ohio. And so we lobbied with our state reps to make sure that we were able to keep the funding. It didn't quite work out in our favor, but I think there's a continued effort to continue to lobby for library funding, because a lot of libraries are starting to lose their funding at the state and federal level. And it's going to fall on cities at some point to try to help out, libraries. So I think it's important, one, to have that partnership, but two, we have to continue to lobby together to make sure that, they're funded, libraries are funded to the level that they need to be able to serve the community.
So what are your top priorities as an at-large councilman?
My top priorities, first, is safety. It's really around making sure, as a growing city, Charles, we got to make sure that as we're growing, our roads can keep up with that growth, but not just that. Every time we create a new or a housing development, or every time we approve a new housing development, those roads got to be plowed. Those people are relying on police services and fire services. And if we can't, as a city, if we can't keep up with that growth, then we're going to get left behind and people aren't going to get the level of service that they need. So we really got to be intentional about how we approve developments, whether it's housing or commercial. The other thing is small businesses. We've got to be more supportive of small businesses and economic development. We got to recruit businesses, right? Revenues, cities need money. We talk about growth. We've got to recruit businesses that are able to pump revenue into our city. And we're not seeing that at the level that we should as a growing community. And when we can attract businesses, we're going to attract jobs. And that's going to create a better way of life for people in our community. And so we've got to be more intentional there. So those are two priorities. It's three, because I wove in that infrastructure piece with safety, but they all go hand in hand. But we've got to generate revenue, but we got to make sure that if we're growing in a smart way, in a responsible way. And again, the most important thing is listening to people, because I can have my priorities and I could create my own, but those priorities come from listening to people and what they want to see and what they're concerned about.
So how do you stay connected to the needs of your constituents?
Man, social media is a beautiful thing. Social media, but also sometimes it's just being out in the community. I mean, I'm always out. I tell you what, I go to B-Dubs, they all know me there. I go to different restaurants, they all know me. I stay engaged. And that part of that is for me just being relational. People can approach me. They know that, whether I'm in a restaurant or in another location. But my biggest thing is being out there in the community, getting to know people, interacting with people. And I've always done that on a consistent basis. And that's, to me, that's the important thing, is engaging with people and being approachable.
I think that's always a good thing, especially when you get into public life or public service, because I think if you're always approachable and people want to have this conversation with you, that you have to have that time.
Yeah.
So let me just ask you this, because this is like just jumping on the opposite end of that. What happens, you think, to where you have people in a lot of communities that are just not trusting of the representatives that they have? What are some things that you can speak on that, and also how they should approach that?
Yeah. Well, first I'll be honest. I get it. I was that person. And I think that's the most important thing, is recognizing in me that I was a person that was not trusting of politicians, right? And so recognizing that that is a real issue, um, the way to get people to engage is, is that part of it is I understand that you may not trust me. I understand that you may not trust this system, but I'm asking you to give me an opportunity because I too was that person. And the reason I got into this is to be that trustworthy person, to bring, I want to bring dignity back to politics. I want to bring unity back. Let's have respectful conversations and let's talk about the issues and let's not try to yell over each other. You know, I tell people, let me be a resource for you. Let me be a voice for you in this effort. And let's work together. The other thing, Charles, is that follow up because people will come to you and they'll say, hey, can you do this or can you look into this? And you hear politicians all the time, yeah, I'll look into it. They never get back with them. That's the key is you got to follow up, because, people know whether you care or not. And if you're not following up and they don't hear from you, then guess what? They don't trust you. And if they don't trust you, they ain't going to vote for you.
Exactly.
So it's to me, it's you got to be open and honest with people. And you got to understand that there's a reason why they don't trust. But you've got to try to do what you can to build that trust. And what I hope is that my background and me talking about some of the things that I've been through in life, and my experience, my hope is that initially I can gain that trust, at least kind of get my foot in the door, and then build that relationship as we go.
So, what does collaborative governance mean to you?
Collaborative government.
Governance.
Collaborative governance. It's as soon as you said that collaborative governance, I immediately thought about we the people, right? I immediately went there because to me, I am a representative of the people in the community that I serve. And so they don't serve me. I serve them. And so I have to understand and recognize that in order for good governance to happen, for it to work, it is based on the will of the people and what the people want and what they expect. And that's where I think we've kind of lost our way, is that sometimes people are just doing what they want to do. But collaborative governance is allowing the people to really determine how they want to be governed and what their priorities are in the city that they pay taxes in.
Right. And not going too deep into this, but let me just ask you this and your thought processes on this, because I think this thing that people have made as a norm, the pay to play, pay the folks that's running office to do what you want them to do, the pay to play part. I'm not with that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, man, I totally transparent here. I struggle with that, even from an endorsement standpoint, right? Because endorsements, I know it's needed. Like people need money for their campaigns. I get that, but I also feel like sometimes when you that whole pay to play thing, you lose your sense of responsibility when it comes to the people that you have been elected to represent. And so, for me, yeah, you need the money because you gotta campaign, you gotta, do the things that you need to do. But at the end of the day, if it compromises your values and your beliefs and why you chose to serve, then it's almost like selling your soul to the devil. You know what I mean? It's, because to me, it's always about the people. It's always about serving. And I could probably go out and serve myself great, and do the things that I want to do. But at the end of the day, I can't do it. I'm here to serve at the will of the people and to be a voice for them. And when it comes to that pay to play thing, I think that's why we see a lot of times in politics today that it's not the will of the people, it's what a large corporation wants, or it's, and so we've got to get back to we got to get back to, governing for the people who have elected us to be their representative. That's what we are, their representative.
Yep. Did you know when you come back on the show, we'll have a much more in-depth conversation about that.
Oh yeah.
Let's go to the Black History portion here of the show. When we chatted, and I told you we do Black History 365, and I asked you who were the most influential persons in your life and your career, and you told me it was Thurgood Marshall and your grandfather.
Yes.
Can you tell us why is Thurgood Marshall such a powerful influence in your life?
So Thurgood Marshall, when you think, it's funny, Charles, because when we got off, I thought about it too, because there were so many others that came to mind. But Thurgood Marshall, in a time, in age, when he was appointed to the highest court in the land, I don't know that people really know. People know, but the United States was in such disarray when it came to race relations and civil rights and education and equality, and so for him to be appointed to the highest court in the land and to make decisions and help draft a decision that was so impactful to the education system was just phenomenal to me. One, that he was able to rise through the ranks, educationally, to get to the point where he could be appointed to the Supreme Court at a time when we wasn't given a lot of access. I mean, the determination that he had to have to get there is just phenomenal to me. And, and then, how long he served too on the Supreme Court. And he did it in a dignified, respectful manner. And it just to me, it was such a powerful individual to really be able to navigate through all those challenges to get to where he was, I mean, the fact that the president appoints you to the Supreme Court lets you know that he was making, some noise enough to be recognized to say, this is a good person that we want to appoint to the Supreme Court. And then we know how long it took to get somebody else there that was African American.
Well,
after Thurgood Marshall.
It was because of the Brown v. Board of Education case that, my first book took place. The scene was Topeka, Kansas, for that very reason. What lessons did your grandfather instill in you that still guides you today?
Service. One, I never got I feel like I knew my grandfather, even though, again, my mother was 3 when he passed. But I did so much research that I still feel this connection with my grandfather. It's almost like the spirit connection. And so, but when I look at everything that he did, like the mayor back then appointed him to lead efforts. He was so respected in the African American community because of his willingness to serve and to give back to the community. And that had a lasting impact on me, because we're talking again the 30s, 40s, early 50s, where, I mean, he was one of few Blacks on that police department. So not only do you deal with some racism, obviously, but then you also are, really big into serving the community. And it's just a blessing for me to have a lot of the archived newspaper articles about some of the, things that he did in the community, but also some of the things that he did on the police department. And again, it goes back to me, I want to finish what he started and what he didn't get to finish, and help continue that legacy of serving and being a beacon of hope for people.
So, how do you honor Black history through your work?
Man, for me, it's recognizing, never minimizing. I think it's like this: never minimizing who I am and where I come from. Always paying homage and respect to my history, my Black history, but also paying homage and respect to the people. And I don't know if I shared this with you, but somebody had to have the determination and the fortitude to lay in the bows of a slave ship for 2 to 3 months, and then to be sold into slavery, and then generations after that enduring slavery for me to be here today. So I have a duty and an obligation to honor Black history every day by showing up and being present. I have that obligation to my ancestors, to the people who came before me, and the people who had enough determination and fortitude to allow me to be here today. Because, we know that people, slaves jumped into the ocean, so they wouldn't be taken into slavery. We know that they were, slaves were beaten and killed. We know what they went through. We know what our ancestors went through. And so for me, I have a duty and an obligation and responsibility to show up every day and pay homage to them in the way that I show up and the way that I'm present.
What does legacy mean to you personally?
It's the dash on the tombstone, right? It's my date of birth. It's going to be my date of death, but it's that dash. What did I do in between those two dates that made a difference in somebody's life? That's for me, that's what it is. It's not a name on a building. It's not anything like that. It's about what did I do in between those dates that impacted, people and gave them hope, help, or encouragement to keep moving on.
How do you connect historical justice to present day action?
Never forgetting the past. Always recognizing the past, but not allowing it to impact the present and the future. And what I mean by that is never forget the things that have taken place historically, but also understanding that some people will try to use that as a obstacle for you to move forward and to be successful. Never forget, because there's this thing about, erasing history. You never forget, but you use it as a motivating factor and you use it as a tool for success. And so for me, it's like bridging. It's a bridge where it's like, I'm going to take this with me. Historically, you said historic justice, right? It's coming with me. It's not staying back there. It's coming with me. It's something that shaped me, but it's not something that's going to hinder me from moving forward. And I think sometimes that's what people want.
I love your answer to that question, Dr. Wilson. But I wanna give you a follow up to that because as you stated that it triggered something in my mind, and that is, with all of the injustices for no unforeseen reason, and we know how that was then. Now we have now, and we still have this unnecessary, these same issues today that's actually at the fifth degree.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, and we have, so many of our young people that we want to make sure that we pave the way for, or we show them the right way to do things, and how to lead and how to be proper young men and young ladies like they're supposed to be. With the situation heightened and as heated as it is now, what are some of the things that you suggest that maybe we could try to change to do different to bring our younger future generation up to a point that they get a different way to critically think those situations and be as impactful as we know they can be?
Yeah. So Charles, I think you kind of said it right. We we have not, and I'll put this on my generation, right? We have not done a really good job of relaying the history to our young people. And we know, we've heard that, if you don't know your history, you're destined to repeat it, right? And so we've not done a really good job of really conveying to our young people, the history and things that have occurred in the past, because it helps me understand what's happening now, right? We have insight into what happened in the past, and so it's like, oh, I've seen this before. The problem is our young people haven't, because we haven't conveyed and really poured into them some of the injustices that happened in the past, so they can recognize what's happening to them right now. And so I think we, me included, just have to do a better job of sitting down and talking to people about what's happening now and how it's relative to what happened in the past, but also giving them hope right now, because a lot of people are losing hope, but giving them hope that, hey, you know what? Brighter days are going to come. We've been down this road before as a people. Brighter days are going to come, better days are going to come, but it's going to be up to us to use our voices, to use our activism, to really continue to speak out and speak up against the injustices that are happening today.
What stories from your family shaped your leadership style?
Excuse me, sorry. I continue to go back to like my grandfather, and I did a lot of searching on our family tree and tracing my mom's lineage back to Sierra Leone. And for me, it's just to know the determination of the people who came before me, to know how determined they were to succeed in spite of all the obstacles. I carried that with me, that determination to succeed, that determination. The other thing is, I don't believe in reaching back. I believe in taking people with you. Because if I reach back, I've left you.
Right.
I got to take you with me. And that's what I learned the most from the research and learning about my grandfather and grandmother, is they took people with them. And that's what we got to do. And we've got to be better at, all of us, is taking people with us. So when we move forward, everybody moves forward.
Yes. Oh, wow. Now, there was a visual when you just said that. And I can understand exactly what that means when you said that. And I'm just thinking, that visual is there.
Yeah.
Why are you reaching back when it should be with you already?
Yes. Take them with you. We're in this together. We're going to move. We're going to take this journey together.
So, how do you teach young people about the power of Black excellence?
So first is exhibiting Black excellence, right? Displaying Black excellence. That's first and foremost, because I can talk about it, but if young people don't see it in me, I have two 13-year-old twin boys. they have to see it in me. But then after that, there's conversations about what it looks like, you know. And one is, for me, it's I'll say this all the time: showing up and being present. Showing up, be present, be proud of who you are, be proud of where you came from, and exhibit that proudness, because we come from kings and queens. We come from um, a place where we were civilized in spite of what people would think, where it was science and math. And so to me, it's you show up and you be present and you be proud of who you are and what you look like and what you stand for.
And what does it mean to be a steward of history and truth?
I mean, for me, it means, it's hard to like put that in words, but that's what I want to embody. It's what I embody, is that. Man, I mean, if I wouldn't be here today, if it wasn't for, the people who came before me, my ancestors. I talk about my grandfather. I also have a little bit of information about my great grandfather. And I have information about where they lived in Virginia and the slave blocks and all that stuff. And so it's like, for me, always knowing where I came from, and where I'm going and where I want to go. And so it's like I got to embody that, because I think sometimes we put a little bit of pressure on ourselves to carry that banner, right? And we want more people to carry that banner. But I always said, Charles, I'm gonna do my part to make sure that I show up, that people see me, and that people hear me and understand that me as an African American man, I'm not going anywhere.
Exactly. How do you carry forward the spirit of Thurgood Marshall in your decisions?
It's being informed, making sure that I do my due diligence when I make a decision, to make sure it's an informed decision. So I do your research. I do my research. I communicate with people. I want to make sure that when I make a decision, it's a decision that, one, people can understand. Two, that people know that it's a well thought out decision. And three, it's a decision that most of the people, not all, but most of the people will be able to get behind, because I can show the reason behind it. That's, to me, was, reading some of his briefs and things like that. I mean, you can tell he went deep into research.
He did.
You can tell. I mean, but we also know for good reason, because people were going to dissect it and try to tear it apart, given the opportunity. And that's what I carry every day.
Final question. What message do you hope viewers take away from your journey?
You know what? I said it. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. Anything's possible, but you got to believe, in something bigger than you. Find your purpose. I found my purpose, and that's a whole different conversation, but finding your purpose. And when you find your purpose, it's a beautiful thing, because every day you get up in your own purpose.
Yep. Every day. So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement you'd like to leave for our audience? Tell them how to connect with you on social media, give them your website, all of those good things.
Yeah, so social media, I'm on Facebook, Instagram. You can get me. It's Anthony AC Wilson 5329 Instagram. On Facebook, it's I know it's a lot, but Wilson Anthony. Wilson the only Wilson Anthony. So you can get me on Facebook there. The library, if you want to reach out to me about the resources and information at the library, go to Columbus Metropolitan Library website, and you can get me there. Yeah, I mean, there's, I'm on LinkedIn too. So you can connect with me through a lot of different social media outlets. But I would just say, to people, use your voice, don't lose hope, continue to be an activist and speak out and speak up. We need that, especially now.
Well, I want to thank you for blessing us with your presence here today, because this was truly an impactful show and truly, just some words of wisdom and a story that I know that our audience can take a lot from. I really, really appreciate this. For those of you that are looking on the 8 channels that we stream, um, for those of you that are looking in particular on the YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed and enabled all the notifications, I ask if you would please support us by doing that. I would really, really appreciate that. What we should have taken away from what Dr. Wilson had to say today or this evening is that community matters, people matter, working together matters, having access matters, not being discriminatory based on people's look, gender, identity, whatever you want to call it. Those things are not necessary because we're all human. But to separate yourself and to be an individual that wants to stay as an individual instead of working together for the better good, that's a problem. We have these issues in a lot of our underserved and marginalized communities, and we're all trying to, a lot of us are working to repair those communities and to build them because we need to build all of our communities around this entire country. I just ask that in getting this great message that we got this evening, that now I'm putting out a call to action for each and every individual that's not only watching this show, that for those that get this message when the show replays, when you get things that are posted around on social media, or when people want to actually have that talk about getting together and building, I'm suggesting that you all take that time, listen, come up with a plan, organize, and execute. Because if we don't do it, nobody else is going to do it for us. And I think it's time out for waiting for somebody to come in and to help you and to be a resource for which you may contribute to, but you don't get any of that back. So that means that it's time to take those matters in your community's hands and make your community what you want it to be. So for those of you that have watched tonight, I want to thank you again. Please join us again tomorrow night as we will have another exciting special here on America in Black and White. I want to thank Dr. Wilson for being here, for doing a super fantastical job and letting us understand what his life is like in this career as a COO of an entire library system, as well as serving as an at-large city councilman and doing community engagement the way he has done it, which means that he's more than making this impact. So I suggest that you guys really reach out to Dr. Wilson and to learn a few things. Ask those questions if you did not get a chance to ask them tonight, because you never know until you ask. Thank you, Dr. Wilson, and I know we'll see you again. I appreciate you, and I want you to have an excellent evening, excellent weekend, and we will see you back.
Thank you, Charles. I
Have a good
appreciate it.